Welcome to a deep dive into some really core Buddhist philosophy.
All right.
We're going to be exploring Samsara and karma and Abhidharma.
Oh, cool.
And, these are some pretty complex ideas.
Yeah, they are.
But the source material that we're looking at today actually makes it pretty approachable.
Okay.
It's a conversation between Pasan and Mystica,
Mm-hmm.
and they're having an informal conversation about Buddhism and karma and the power of Abhidharma.
Awesome.
And it's full of vivid analogies and kind of unique perspectives. So
Sounds-
by the end of this deep dive,
Yeah.
you're going to have hopefully a whole new perspective on these sometimes misunderstood concepts.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
What I like about the conversation is that it doesn't feel like a lecture at all.
Right.
It's really like listening to two friends kind of grapple with these big ideas.
Yeah,
And they challenge each other along the way.
totally. So let's just start with like the basics.
Okay.
Samsara and karma.
Right.
We hear these terms all the time, but what do they actually really mean?
So samsara is the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth.
Okay.
So think of it as the grand carousel of existence in Buddhist thought.
Okay.
And then the engine driving this carousel is karma,
Okay.
which is the law of cause and effect.
Yeah.
Every action, every thought, every intention creates a ripple effect that shapes our future experiences. And not just in this life, but also in future lives.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how those two things are linked.
Yeah.
But karma can be kind of like a little abstract, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do we actually conceptualize it? So do Pasan and Mystica offer any kind of concrete examples that can help us understand it?
They do.
Yeah.
Pasan uses this really interesting analogy of a steel cube filled with razor balls.
Okay.
So imagine even the slightest nudge, like the tiniest vibration, sets off this huge chain reaction.
Oh, wow.
This energy is bouncing around unpredictably, and by the time it returns to that starting point, it's been amplified and transformed by
Right.
like every interaction along the way.
So even seemingly small actions can have huge unforeseen consequences down the line.
Yes, exactly.
And is that what keeps the cycle of samsara spinning?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
It really emphasizes the interconnectedness of like everything. Right. And what's really interesting is that even divine beings,
Okay.
those who have reached really high levels of awareness,
Mm-hmm.
they aren't necessarily exempt from samsara.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Why is it so hard to escape this cycle, even for those who are like, super enlightened?
So Pasan explains that it's because energy, by its very nature, seeks movement and transformation.
Mm-hmm.
It's always looking for a new outlet, a new experience.
Correct.
So even for divine beings, there's this natural pull to continue like experiencing and evolving, which keeps them within the cycle of samsara.
Okay, that makes me think about the idea of letting go, which is,
Hmm.
a big part of like many spiritual practices.
Right.
So if energy is always transforming, how do we actually go of anything? It
Yeah.
seems like kind of a paradox.
Oh, that's where Pasan offers a perspective that I think really challenges like conventional thinking.
Okay.
He argues that letting go isn't about suppressing or ignoring your feelings. Instead, it's about fully absorbing and processing the energy of those feelings
Okay.
so that they don't continue to perpetuate that cycle.
So instead of trying to push away difficult emotions,
Yeah.
we kind of like lean into them,
Yes.
but in a way that kind of neutralizes their energy.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's like containing the energy within yourself,
Right.
preventing it from bouncing back out into the world
Yeah.
and creating more karmic ripples.
Okay.
And this idea of neutralizing karmic energy
Mm.
instead of generating new karma really highlights the magnitude of Buddha's achievement in reaching nirvana.
Oh, okay. So Buddha essentially managed to like completely still the energy within himself
Yes,
and break free from the cycle of samsara.
that's incredible.
That's incredible.
It is.
So nirvana is often described as a state of complete stillness,
Yes.
a cessation of all suffering, and the cycle of rebirth.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that Pasan and Mystica talk about how Buddha attained this state by becoming lokavidu. Lokavidu.
Yeah, which translates to knower of worlds.
Knower of worlds.
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It does it actually mean?
It means that Buddha experienced every facet of existence,
Oh.
from like the heights of joy and bliss
Mm-hmm.
to the depths of suffering and despair.
Wow.
He didn't just achieve enlightenment by meditating in a cave.
Right.
He walked every path,
Wow.
lived
Wow.
every experience.
Wow.
And that's where his wisdom comes from.
So Buddhist teachings carry so much weight because they're
Yeah.
based on like direct lived experience.
Exactly.
He's not just theorizing about the nature of reality.
Yeah.
He's speaking from a place of having seen it all.
Exactly. When Buddha says, don't do this because this will happen,
Right.
it's not coming from a place of dogma or speculation.
Right.
It's coming from a place of profound understanding,
Aye.
of having lived and learned through countless lifetimes.
That's what makes his insights so powerful and so relevant even today.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like it's like having a guide who's already mapped out every possible route
Right.
and can tell you like which paths lead to dead ends and which ones lead to breathtaking vistas.
Exactly.
Now you mentioned that Abhidharma is where things get like really interesting.
Okay.
So what exactly is Abhidharma and how does it fit into all of this?
So Abhidharma is often referred to as the higher teachings of Buddhism.
Okay.
It goes beyond those like surface level principles
Okay.
and provides a detailed, almost scientific analysis of reality.
Mhm.
It's like a blueprint for how consciousness and the universe itself operates.
So it's not just about achieving enlightenment.
Right.
It's about understanding the mechanics of existence itself.
Yes.
Like, is it Buddhism's version of physics or psychology?
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And what's remarkable is that Pasan sees Abhidharma not just as a path to nirvana, but as like a complete manual for existence. He believes it's so precise and comprehensive that it could even be used to manipulate karma for personal gain.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that Abhidharma could be used for like less than noble purposes?
That's what he suggests.
That it's like this neutral knowledge that can be wielded for good or bad?
Exactly.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
It's like Abhidharma is this incredibly powerful tool,
Yeah.
but it's up to us to decide how we use it.
Right.
And this brings up another point that Pasan emphasizes, which is that Abhidharma doesn't deal with concepts of good and bad in the conventional sense.
Yes.
It focuses on the underlying energy driving actions,
Right.
not on judging those actions as inherently right or wrong.
This is where the conversation really starts to challenge our typical ways of thinking.
Okay.
So instead of labeling actions as good or bad,
Go.
Abhidharma helps us understand the quality and nature of the energy that's fueling those actions.
Right.
And to do that, it breaks down reality into these fundamental elements or energies called Namarupa and Sankalpa.
Okay. I've heard those terms before, but I admit they've always kind of confused me a little.
Yeah.
So can you break them down for me? Like, what do they actually mean?
Of course. So most people translate Namarupa and Sankalpa as name, form, and thought.
Okay.
But Pasan makes it clear that that's a vast oversimplification.
Okay.
In Abhidharma, Nama refers to a set of pure, non-physical energies that are fundamental to consciousness.
Okay.
So it's the essence of our mental experience, but it doesn't have a physical form.
Okay.
It's pure energy.
So it's like the software that runs the computer of our mind.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
Rupa, on the other hand, represents a distinct set of energies that have physical characteristics.
Okay.
So it's the blueprint for all matter, the building blocks of the physical world.
Right.
And Buddha broke down Rupa into these elements,
Yeah.
each with a unique combination of 8 to 13 gunas.
Gunas.
Yeah.
What are those?
Think of gunas as qualities or characteristics.
Okay.
So these gunas determine the nature of the elements that make up Rupa, dictating how matter behaves and interacts.
So that's like a recipe for the physical world,
Yeah.
where the gunas are the ingredients that give each element its unique flavor.
Exactly.
Okay, so nama is like the non-physical energy of our minds.
Yes.
And rupa is the energy that forms the physical world,
Yes.
with its different gunas determining its properties.
Right.
What about sankalpa?
Yes.
Where does that fit in?
Sankalpa is fascinating because it highlights the role of our perception
Okay.
in shaping reality.
Okay.
It represents the labels and mental constructs that we create to make sense of the world around us.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. So Pasan uses the example of a table.
Okay.
We see this collection of wood planks and we label it as a table.
Right.
But that label table is an abstract concept we've created. It's not inherent to the wood planks themselves.
So sankalpa is like the filter through which we view reality.
Exactly.
It's how we impose our own interpretations and meanings onto the world.
Exactly. And what's really mind-blowing is how these ancient Buddhist concepts, developed centuries ago, actually connect with some of the most cutting-edge ideas in modern science.
Totally.
Like the way Buddha described Nama and Rupa with their fundamental energies and qualities sounds a lot like the principles of quantum physics.
Right.
And how matter behaves at the subatomic level.
And the way Sankalpa emphasizes the role of our perception in shaping reality.
Yes.
that echoes some of the ideas about consciousness and its interaction with the physical world
Exactly.
that are being explored in fields like quantum mechanics and biocentrism.
Precisely.
It's amazing.
It is.
This is just the beginning of our journey into Abhidharma.
Yeah.
As we unpack this conversation between Pasan and Mystica even more,
Yes.
you see how these concepts play out in even more fascinating and practical ways.
I'm ready.
Get ready to have your mind blown.
I am.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
All right. One of the things that continues to amaze me about these teachings is how Buddha described sensory perception centuries ago, long before we had the scientific tools to understand it the way we do now.
He had this incredible intuitive grasp of how our senses work on such a deep level for his time.
He did.
Yeah.
For instance, he explained sensory perception in terms of energy exchange and wave resonance.
Okay.
So when something falls to the ground,
Right.
he said it creates a disturbance.
Mm-hmm.
And those waves of energy travel to our ears.
Okay.
But he went even deeper than that.
Oh, how so?
He didn't just talk about sound waves. He actually described specific structures within the ear
Wow.
that receive and resonate with those waves.
Okay.
He called these structures Sotasaka Kalapa.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
Is there a simpler way to think about what these kalapas are?
Absolutely. So think of them like tiny antennas in your ears
Okay.
that are specifically designed to pick up sound waves.
Yeah.
And what's remarkable is that these kalapasas seem to correspond to what we now understand as sensory receptors or energy processing centers in the ear.
Oh, wow.
It's like Buddha was describing the anatomy of the ear in terms of energy centuries before we had microscopes.
That's wild. And did he have a similar explanation for how vision works?
He did.
Oh, wow.
So he described layers within the eye, with the final layer acting almost like a mirror
Okay.
to receive light. And guess what?
What?
He even used the term Chakurasaka Kalapa to describe the structures responsible for receiving visual input in the eye.
So it's not just about having eyes and ears.
Right.
It's about having these specialized kalapas
Yes.
that can receive and process specific types of energy.
Yes.
Whether it's light waves or sound waves.
Exactly.
That makes me think about creatures like snakes and worms, which don't have conventional eyes and ears.
Right?
So how did Buddha explain their ability to perceive the world?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So people often assume that snakes hear through vibrations in the ground, but Buddha explained that they actually perceive sound waves directly through a unique set of kalapas.
Oh, interesting.
So he recognized that perception happens on an energetic level.
Yeah.
And that different beings have evolved different ways of tapping into that energy.
That actually aligns with some modern scientific concepts like biofield theory,
Yes.
which suggests that we're all surrounded by these subtle energy fields that play a role in how we perceive and interact with the world.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
Buddha's insights seem to be increasingly relevant as modern science continues to explore the nature of consciousness and the universe.
Totally. But his explanations of the senses don't stop there.
Right.
His description of how touch works is particularly fascinating.
It is.
Okay, I'm all ears. How did Buddha explain our sense of touch?
So he didn't just say that we feel things when they press against our skin.
Right.
He went deeper, explaining that our skin primarily senses touch through thermal differences.
So it's not just about pressure, but about the temperature contrast between our skin and whatever we're touching. I never thought about it that way before.
It's a subtle but profound insight.
Yeah.
Pasan gives a great example to illustrate this. Imagine a teardrop rolling down your skin.
Okay.
You don't really feel it until its temperature contrasts with yours.
Yeah.
That's when the sensation registers.
So Buddha was essentially saying that our sense of touch is finely tuned to detect changes in temperature.
Yes.
Which is incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
It means that we're not constantly bombarded with sensory input from
Right.
every little thing that brushes against our skin.
Yeah.
Our nervous system has evolved to prioritize the most relevant information.
Exactly. It's like our senses are designed to filter out the noise and focus on what's most important for our survival and well-being. And this brings us to another key concept in Abhidharma,
Okay.
choreography, the flow of thoughts.
Okay, so here's where I need a little help.
Okay.
My mind is anything but still.
Right.
It feels like a whirlwind of thoughts most of the time. So how does this idea of a flow of thoughts work?
Well, Buddha taught that even though it feels like our minds are processing multiple thoughts at once,
Yeah.
in reality, it's all happening sequentially.
Wait, really? So even when I'm multitasking, like walking, talking, thinking about what I need to do later,
Yeah.
my mind is actually tackling each of those things one at a time.
That's what Buddha proposed.
Wow.
He compared it to the frames in a film reel.
Oh, okay.
Each thought arises,
Yeah.
exists for a brief moment,
Okay.
and then vanishes to make way for the next thought.
Okay.
He even broke down time into these incredibly tiny units called shunners.
Shutters.
Yeah, which are infinitesimal fractions of a second
Wow.
to illustrate how rapidly this process is happening.
Just how tiny are we talking here?
Think trillions of parts of a second.
Oh my goodness.
And within each shunner, he said there are 51 sub-processes happening,
Wow.
related to how the mind receives and releases information.
That is mind-bogglingly fast. So if it's all happening so quickly, why does it feel like our thoughts are continuous?
So Buddha described a pattern called Utpalatithibangla,
Okay.
which is basically this rapid cycle of thoughts emerging,
Yeah.
sustaining for a few shunners,
Right.
and then vanishing. It happens so fast that it creates the illusion of a continuous flow.
Right.
Just like those LED fans that use flashing lights to create images.
Oh, I see. So the lights are actually blinking on and off really quickly.
Right.
But it looks like a solid picture to us because our eyes can't process the individual flashes.
Exactly. But Buddha used examples like fire rings being spun quickly or a waterfall appearing solid.
Right.
Even though it's made of individual drops to illustrate this idea.
Right.
Like reality itself is this incredibly rapid sequence of moments.
Yeah.
Each one slightly different from the one before it.
That's a pretty profound way to look at things.
It is.
It makes you realize just how much is happening beneath the surface of our awareness.
Yeah.
How much complexity we're constantly filtering and processing.
Yeah. And what's even more fascinating is that Buddha connected this flow of thoughts to the process of aging.
Okay.
He said that each shana or instant carries slightly less energy than the one that came before it.
So it's not just that time is passing.
Right.
It's that each moment has this subtle energetic imprint of all the moments that preceded it.
Yes.
And as that energy gradually diminishes,
Mm-hmm.
it leads to the breakdown and decay that we experience as aging.
Yes. Buddha described this as a kind of cosmic entropy,
Okay.
where the energy of each moment slowly dissipates, leading to the inevitable process of decline
Right.
we see in the physical world. But he also emphasized that this process is not just about loss.
Right.
It's also about the accumulation of experience and wisdom.
That's a beautiful way to reframe it.
It is.
It makes you appreciate the preciousness of each moment even more,
Yeah.
knowing that it's unique and fleeting and that its energy will contribute to the overall tapestry of existence.
Exactly. And this leads us to another important concept that Buddha explored. The distinction between physical and mental merit,
Yes.
known as pina and kusalaya.
Right. I remember Pasan was very clear that these are not the same thing,
Yeah.
even though they're often translated simply as merit.
Exactly. So pina is physical merit.
Okay.
It's the tangible energy you accumulate from performing good deeds.
Okay.
It actually manifests as a physical element or atom within the body.
Hold on. So you're saying that good actions literally create a positive energy structure within you.
That's what Buddha taught.
It's not just a feeling, it's an actual physical change.
Yes, pina has qualities like expansion,
Mm-hmm.
and it creates that uplifting feeling you get when you do something good.
Right.
It's a direct link between your actions and your physical experience.
Okay.
Kusalaya, on the other hand, is non-physical merit.
Okay.
It's the mental and spiritual benefit you gain from cultivating wisdom, compassion, and understanding.
So Pina is like building up good karma in the physical world,
Yes.
while Kusalaya is about refining and purifying your consciousness.
Exactly. And this highlights how important it is to cultivate both.
Yeah.
Pina influences your experiences in the material world, while Kusalaya elevates your mind and brings you closer to enlightenment.
Right.
They work together to create a more harmonious and fulfilling existence.
It's like you're working on two levels.
Right.
Your physical well-being and your spiritual evolution.
Yeah.
And they both contribute to a more positive karmic trajectory.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to the idea of karma itself.
Yes.
Buddha didn't just view karma as a simple system of rewards and punishments for our actions, did he?
He did not.
Okay.
Buddha taught that karma is much more nuanced than that.
Okay.
He emphasized that it's not just about our actions, but about the intentions and mental states behind them.
So it's not enough to just do the right thing.
Right.
You have to be mindful of the motivation and energy that's driving your actions.
Exactly. He gave the example of two people fighting.
Okay.
Even if both engage in violence, their karmic outcomes will be different. Depending on the intensity and purity of their motives,
Oh.
one might be fueled by pure rage and hatred,
Right.
while the other might be defending themselves out of necessity.
So even though the actions might look similar on the surface,
Right.
the energy behind them is different, and that's what ultimately matters
Yes.
in terms of karmic consequences.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that our inner world, our thoughts and intentions,
Right.
have a powerful impact on our outer reality.
That's a really important takeaway from this conversation.
Yeah.
And this understanding of karma leads to another key insight, the power of the final thought.
Okay. This is where it gets a little mysterious.
It does.
Yeah.
So Buddha taught that the final mental state at the moment of death is incredibly important
Okay.
because it sets the stage for your next life.
Oh,
It's like the last brushstroke on the canvas of your current existence.
okay.
And it influences the colors and shapes that will appear on the next canvas.
So you're saying that our final thought literally shapes our next existence.
In essence, yes. It's because the quality of cheetahs?
Cheetahs?
Yes. The mental events or mind moments
Yeah.
at that final point are incredibly potent.
Right.
They become the karmic blueprint that you carry forward.
Wow.
Pasan shares a story about a Rahat Thera.
A Rahat Thera.
Yeah, an enlightened being
Right.
who uses his understanding of this principle to guide the final thoughts of a dying person
Okay.
to a more peaceful and positive state.
Wow. So he's essentially redirecting their karmic path,
Yes.
helping them to have a more favorable rebirth.
Yes, that's incredible.
That's incredible. But Pasan also points out that this knowledge can be used in less positive ways.
Right.
Like someone could intentionally trigger negative emotions in a person's final moments.
Yes.
And potentially influence their next life in a less desirable direction.
Exactly.
That's both fascinating and a bit disturbing.
It is.
It really underscores the weight of our choices,
Yes.
especially our mental and emotional states, even at the very end of life.
It does. And this understanding of the power of the final thought highlights both the immense potential and the ethical responsibility that comes with understanding Abhidharma.
It seems like this conversation is full of those kinds of insights,
Yeah.
things that make you think differently about reality
Yeah.
and your place in it.
It does. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we'll explore how these principles of Abhidharma can be applied to everyday life
Okay.
in ways that are both practical and incredibly profound.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
Samsara, karma, abhidharma, even those tiny units of time called shunners.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how all these concepts weave together, but I have to admit, it's a lot to absorb.
It is.
So, but what's so remarkable is how Abhidharma takes all these intricate concepts
Right.
and turns them into like a practical guide for navigating life. It's
Yeah.
not just about like abstract philosophy.
Right.
It offers like real world wisdom.
It does.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does this ancient wisdom actually translate into everyday life?
Okay.
Do Pasan and Mystica give any examples?
They do.
Right.
One of the most practical yet surprisingly profound examples they discuss
Okay.
is Buddha's advice to chew your food 32 times before swallowing.
Chew 32 times. That seems incredibly specific.
It does.
What's the reasoning behind that?
So it's not just about hitting a magic number.
Okay.
Buddha understood that chewing thoroughly transforms food into a smoother substance,
Okay.
almost like a paste,
Okay.
which is much easier for the body to digest and absorb nutrients from.
Okay.
He called this paste like form ghee.
So it's about maximizing the nutritional value of our food.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Especially in today's world where we're often rushing through meals,
Exactly.
just like inhaling our food.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like mindful eating at its finest.
Yeah.
Slowing down, savoring each bite, and working with our body's natural processes.
Okay. I'm starting to see how something as simple as chewing can become a practice in mindfulness and efficiency.
Yes.
But you mentioned this connects to like a deeper understanding of energy.
Yes.
Can you explain that connection?
So remember how Buddha talked about the incredible power contained within the smallest particles,
Yeah.
like atoms?
Mm-hmm.
He said that 2 atoms could destroy entire cities if their energy was fully unleashed.
It's mind-blowing to think about how much potential energy exists
It is.
at such a microscopic level.
It is.
Yeah.
Buddha understood that energy exchange becomes incredibly efficient and powerful.
Okay.
At that atomic level, he believed that chewing our food thoroughly, breaking it down closer to that level, allows our bodies to access and utilize its energy more effectively.
So it's like we're transforming food into its purest, most potent form, almost like a form of alchemy.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And this idea of working with energy at its most fundamental level,
Mm-hmm.
not just in food but in all aspects of life, is central to many of Buddha's teachings. It's about optimizing the human experience, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually as well.
And that's where Abhidharma comes in, as
Yes.
this comprehensive guide to understanding and navigating that reality.
Yes. Pasan describes Abhidharma as having the white box view of existence.
Okay.
So instead of blindly following rules or hoping for the best,
Right.
it allows us to understand the mechanics of how things work.
Yeah.
This knowledge empowers us to make conscious, informed choices.
So with Abhidharma, you can choose to either transcend samsara completely,
Right.
achieving liberation like Buddha,
Yes.
or you can master the game of life from within,
Right.
knowing exactly how each move will play out.
Precisely. It's about freedom and empowerment.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we have a choice in how we experience reality. Abhidharma doesn't dictate a specific path.
Right.
It gives us the tools to create our own.
It's like Buddha was saying, look, I figured out how this whole system works.
Yeah.
Now you can use this knowledge to create the life you want,
Yeah.
whether that's liberation from suffering or a more fulfilling journey within the cycle of existence.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why Pasan encourages everyone to study and understand Abhidharma.
Yes.
It's not about dogma or blind faith.
Mm-hmm.
It's about unlocking the potential within ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to shape our reality in a conscious and meaningful way.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
Yes,
I feel like I need to go back and listen to it all again just to let everything sink in.
I agree. What stands out to you the most from this exploration of samsara, karma, and Abhidharma?
For me, it's the sense of agency that Abhidharma offers.
Right.
The idea that we're not just helpless victims of fate,
Right.
but active participants in shaping our own reality.
Yeah.
We can understand the forces at play
Yeah.
and make choices that lead to greater happiness,
Yeah.
both for ourselves and for others.
I agree. It reminds me of that idea of energy conservation we talked about.
Yeah.
By understanding karma and how our intentions shape our experiences, we can choose to put more positive energy into the world.
It's a beautiful thought to leave with, that each of us has the power to create ripples of positive change,
Yeah.
both within ourselves and in the world around us.
If mastering Abhidharma offers the possibility of consciously shaping karma and even influencing rebirth, what choices will we make in this present moment?
That's a powerful question for all of us to reflect on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.